The voicemail came in just after dark. "Ebby, we're looking for you. We're going to find you. We love you." It was October 25th, 2015, and Michael Steppach was driving through West Little Rock, Arkansas, searching streets and wooded areas, calling out for his 18-year-old stepdaughter. Earlier that day, she had told him she was going to report a rape to the police, but then she vanished. No calls, no texts, no sign of her. The next day, her black Volkswagen Passat was found parked and abandoned in a quiet neighborhood park. The keys were gone, her phone and wallet were missing, but her makeup bag was still there, untouched. The car had no fingerprints, and no Ebby. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months. Theories flew. Had she run away? Was she hiding from someone? Or had she been silenced before she could speak? Her family knew something was wrong. This wasn't like Ebby. She might have been rebellious and moody at times, but she was also bold, vocal, and never one to back down. If something had happened to her, it wasn't an accident. For nearly 3 years, the park where her car was discovered sat largely undisturbed. No full-scale search, no scent dogs, just an unshakable sense of dread. Then, in May 2018, a maintenance crew checking the park's drainage system discovered human remains in a nearby storm drain, just 60 feet from where Ebby's car had been left. It was her. The mystery of where she was had finally been answered, but what happened to her and who was responsible remained buried in shadows. The story of Ebby Steppach is not just a mystery. It is a chilling portrait of failed systems, lost opportunities, and a family's refusal to give up on justice. Her voice may have been silenced, but her case echoes louder than ever. And now we trace it back to the beginning. Ebby Jane Steppach was born on March 31, 1997, and adopted as a baby by Michael and Lori Steppach. From a young age, she was described as bold, emotional, creative, and fiercely independent. Her parents separated when she was still young, but both remained central to her life. Ebby was raised in Little Rock, Arkansas, where she attended Central High School. She was artistic, expressive, and didn't shy away from challenging rules. Her social media pages reflected a girl with depth. She wrote long, personal posts, often revealing inner battles, hope, heartbreak, and fire. She was close to her older brother, Trevor, who often acted as her sounding board. The siblings had a strong bond, especially when Ebby felt misunderstood by others. After high school, she moved in with Trevor for a while, hoping to find more freedom and maybe a little peace. Ebby had dreams. She wanted to study cosmetology, explore makeup artistry, maybe even start her own business. She had the kind of vision that came in bursts, never passive, always passionate. But with her ambition came challenges, mood swings, occasional outbursts, and frequent conflicts with authority. Her mental health was a concern, but it wasn't uncommon for teenagers caught between independence and instability. In the fall of 2015, Ebby's life took a dark turn. She told friends and family that she had attended a party where she was drugged and sexually assaulted by multiple boys she knew. Worse, she said the assault had been filmed. Her anger turned to obsession. She wanted justice. She wanted accountability. She wasn't scared to name names. But she was scared. At the same time, those around her noticed she seemed rattled. Her mood spiraled from rage to withdrawal. Her mother, Lori, later recalled that Ebby looked like she wasn't sleeping. She cried a lot. She tried to be strong, but something had changed. On Saturday, October 24th, she told her stepfather, Michael, that she was going to the police to report what had happened. She said she'd handle it herself. That conversation would be the last time anyone in her family heard her voice. By the next evening, her phone stopped responding. Texts went unread, calls went unanswered. Trevor noticed right away. Ebby never ignored him for long. He grew worried and began retracing her steps. 2 days later, her car was found. Her life, once so full of words, energy, and motion, went eerily silent. and so began a search that would last over 2.5 years. A case that would haunt Arkansas, a name that would echo long after her voice disappeared. On Saturday, October 24, 2015, Ebby Steppach left her brother Trevor's house in West Little Rock. She had told her family she was heading to the police department to report a sexual assault. She was determined, upset, but composed. It was the last confirmed moment her family had with her. Later that day, she exchanged texts with friends, brief, strange, and emotional. One friend recalled her writing, "They're not going to get away with this." Another message hinted at being followed. She was scared, but there was no sign she planned to disappear. By Sunday, October 25, her phone went silent. Calls went straight to voicemail. Her mother, Lori, grew anxious and texted, "Ebby, call me now." No reply. Trevor tried next. No response. He grew panicked. She wouldn't ghost her brother, not when she'd just made serious claims about a violent crime. That evening, Lori filed a missing person report. Police treated it cautiously. At first, they considered her a possible runaway. Ebby had left home before after family disputes, but she always came back. This time felt different. The next day, October 27th, her car, a black 2003 Volkswagen Passat, was discovered by a passerby. It was parked in Chalamont Park, a small, quiet green space nestled in a residential neighborhood, not a place she was known to visit. The scene was eerie. The doors were locked, the car battery was dead, her wallet and phone were missing, but oddly, her makeup bag was still there. There were no visible signs of a struggle, but something didn't feel right. The driver's seat was pushed back farther than Ebby would have needed. There were smudges and leaves on the exterior, but the interior looked undisturbed. Even more troubling, police did not treat the vehicle as a crime scene. It was towed and held, but no forensics, no fingerprint dusting, and no canine units were brought in. Ebby's family immediately sensed something was wrong. They believed she had been in that car, that she was lured or forced into the park, that someone was trying to throw off the trail. Her stepfather even walked the wooded area surrounding the park that night, calling out her name. But no ground search was conducted by authorities. No homes near the park were canvassed. No drones or search teams were dispatched. Ebby's phone last pinged near the same area around the time she disappeared. Still, the urgency just wasn't there. As the days turned into weeks, frustration set in. The police had the car, they had the timeline, they had a known location, but they were operating under the assumption that Ebby had simply run off. The truth, her family feared, was far more terrifying. Because if she hadn't left on her own, someone had taken her. When Ebby Steppach vanished in October 2015, the official tone from the Little Rock Police Department was dismissive from the start. "She's probably a runaway." It was a label that devastated her family. Yes, Ebby was 18. Yes, she had a history of emotional ups and downs. And yes, she had argued with her parents and left home before. But she had always returned, called or messaged someone close. And this time, she had told her family she was going to the police. She had made serious criminal accusations. She had left behind her car, makeup, and entire identity. This was not a case of a rebellious teen disappearing for attention, but the authorities treated it that way. In the early days of the investigation, no Amber Alert was issued. No immediate media briefing was held. Surveillance footage from homes and businesses near Chalamont Park was not promptly collected. Most damning of all, the car, her only known last location, was not processed as a crime scene. The runaway narrative became the excuse for inaction. The public began to absorb the same idea. Social media users questioned her mental health. Rumors floated that she had fled to escape shame, drugs, or scandal. But no one close to Ebby believed that for a second. "She wouldn't run," her mother Lori insisted. "She wouldn't do that to us." She was angry, not defeated. At the time of her disappearance, Ebby was emotionally raw, but also focused. She had told at least 2 people that she had been sexually assaulted. She believed video evidence existed. She texted one of the alleged perpetrators, saying she was going to the police. Her brother Trevor confirmed this. If she had really run away, where did she go? Why was her car parked in a residential park with her makeup inside and no digital trace afterward? Why didn't she take money, a change of clothes, or contact anyone? Over time, it became increasingly clear that the runaway theory was not just false, it was damaging. It delayed essential investigative steps, it created public doubt, and it robbed Ebby of her dignity. In the months after her disappearance, her family organized search parties, hired private investigators, and tried everything from media outreach to billboards. They begged police to reclassify the case, but even then, progress was slow. One of the most heartbreaking symbols of this inaction was a mailbox the family installed at Chalamont Park. It was labeled Letters for Ebby. People were invited to write notes, memories, or tips. It became a quiet monument in a place where hope had gone missing. But behind the gesture was deep pain, because the people who should have looked hardest had already decided she had simply walked away. And by the time they realized she hadn't, years had passed and key evidence had vanished into the wind. From nearly the beginning, the Little Rock Police Department's response to Ebby Steppach's disappearance was marked by delays, assumptions, and what many later described as indifference. To her family, it felt like a betrayal. When Ebby's car was found on October 27th, parked oddly in Chalamont Park, it should have been a critical breakthrough. But instead of sealing off the area, dusting the car for fingerprints, and treating it like a potential panel seam, police towed the vehicle without processing it. No forensics team was sent, no canine unit deployed. The interior was not photographed in detail, and the surrounding wooded park area was never searched. Even worse, her phone's last ping had been near that very location. Yet still, no ground search. Ebby's family watched helplessly as precious time slipped away. Her mother, Lori, and brother Trevor pushed investigators for updates, but the case was treated like low priority. Officers continued to imply she had run away. Leads were not aggressively pursued. And perhaps most outrageously, the young men she had accused of rape were not interviewed for months. Had Ebby lied? Had she fled from embarrassment? These were the kinds of questions police seemed more interested in than who harmed this girl, or where is she now? Lori Steppach later said in an interview, "They treated her like a troubled teen, not a victim. They saw attitude, not fear." To be fair, the department was dealing with a high volume of cases. But the lack of urgency in Ebby's case wasn't just poor procedure, it was systemic failure. The sex crimes division, where she would have filed her report, wasn't open on weekends. That alone cost them valuable time. Had someone intercepted her between Saturday and Monday? No one could say. No one had checked fast enough. It wasn't until media pressure and public outrage began to grow that the department started shifting gears. But by then, months had passed and leads were going cold. In early 2016, the family went public with their frustrations. News outlets picked up the story, and Facebook groups devoted to finding Ebby began gaining traction. A clearer timeline emerged, along with more evidence that Ebby's last actions were purposeful. She had intended to go to the police. She was not suicidal. She was not lost. She was missing, and police hadn't acted like she mattered. The department later admitted to gaps in the early investigation, and Ebby's case was reassigned to homicide detectives. It was a painful but important shift. At last, someone was acknowledging that this wasn't just a runaway story. It might be a murder. But by then, so much had already slipped away. Files delayed, evidence ignored, voices silenced. It would take nearly 3 years before police truly looked where they should have started, right where her car was found.
It was a warm spring morning in May 2018, 2 years and 7 months since Ebby Steppach disappeared, when the breakthrough finally came. Not from police work, not from high-tech forensics, but from a maintenance crew. City workers were inspecting a clogged storm drain in Chalamont Park, the very same park where Ebby's abandoned car had been found back in 2015. As they cleared debris and pried open a metal grate, they made a grim discovery: human remains. It had taken nearly 3 years, and the answers had been less than 100 feet from where her car was left. The news spread fast. The Steppach family was notified immediately. The emotional toll was crushing, yet laced with tragic relief. They had feared this outcome for so long, feared that Ebby wasn't lost, but left behind. Now they knew. DNA and dental records confirmed it within days. The remains were Ebby's. She had been in that park all along. The discovery triggered an immediate reopening of the crime scene. For the first time since October 2015, investigators blocked off the area. Search teams combed through the drainage system. Detectives in hazmat suits crawled into the tunnels that could only be accessed through tight, hidden entry points. Inside the storm drain, they found bones and clothing. Her body had deteriorated badly, exposed to water, mud, and time. Investigators couldn't determine an exact cause of death, but foul play was suspected. She hadn't simply fallen in. The community was shaken. How could it have taken this long? Why hadn't the park been searched properly when her car was found? Why had search dogs not been used then? Lori Steppach, Ebby's mother, told reporters, "She was there, right there, and they didn't look. We screamed for years, begged them to search that area, and they told us there was no need." What made it worse was that tip after tip had suggested Shalamont Park was significant. Volunteers had asked to search the drainage. One private investigator even pointed to the sewer access in 2016, but nothing happened. For Ebby's family, this wasn't just a discovery, it was an indictment. The location of her body wasn't far off a main trail. The storm drain had been right there, visible, accessible. She may have been placed in the tunnel, possibly shoved in through an opening. Theories began circulating. Was she killed and disposed of there? Or did she confront someone in that area and meet violence? But the discovery raised as many questions as it answered. There was no clear evidence left. The scene had been exposed to weather and time. There were no surveillance cameras, no traceable DNA, no eyewitnesses. And whoever had put her there, if she had been placed, had gone undetected for nearly 3 years. Yet for her family, this chapter, while harrowing, was also a form of peace. After so much fear, uncertainty, and pain, they could finally bring her home. Her funeral was held in June 2018, with hundreds attending, wearing purple, her favorite color. Ebby was laid to rest. But justice remained buried. And now the world wanted to know, what really happened to Ebby Steppach? The official confirmation came in late May 2018. The remains found in the storm drain at Shalamont Park were those of Ebby Jane Steppach. After 2 years, 7 months, and 1 day of tireless searching, public pleading, and heartbreak, the question of where she was had finally been answered. Ebby had been just 60 feet from where her car was discovered. She had never left that park. Her remains, bones, scraps of clothing, and fragments of her life were recovered by investigators after the storm drain was cleared. The tunnel was tight, dark, and snaked under the landscape. It was not a place someone would wander into by accident. Even trained searchers later admitted the layout was complex, with multiple entry points and dead ends. The fact that Ebby had remained undiscovered in such proximity to the original scene was nothing short of shocking. The family and even the public demanded answers. Why hadn't search dogs been used in 2015? Why weren't the storm drains explored when the car was found? How could police say they had searched thoroughly when this was missed? For the Steppach family, these questions were not theoretical. They were personal, devastating reminders of missed chances. During the press briefing, police acknowledged their oversight. A spokesperson admitted that in hindsight, more should have been done to search the drainage system. But the damage was already done. Years of evidence had been washed away, literally and figuratively. There was no cause of death identified, no trauma that could be confirmed due to the condition of the remains, no clothing fibers or DNA that led to a suspect. It was both an ending and a cruel new beginning. Ebby was found, but her story was far from over. If anything, the mystery deepened. Theories flourished, rumors reignited, and online investigators picked up where law enforcement left off. In June 2018, Ebby's funeral was held at Christ the King Catholic Church in Little Rock. Her family requested that mourners wear purple, her favorite color. Hundreds showed up. Some brought flowers, others brought letters, photos, or quiet tears. She was remembered not only for her courage and energy, but for how fiercely she fought for herself in her final days. Lori, her mother, spoke softly to reporters afterward. She was trying to do the right thing. She wanted justice. She wanted to be heard, and she was ignored. Ebby was laid to rest in Calvary Cemetery under a headstone marked with butterflies, a symbol her family said represented both fragility and freedom. But the final chapter was still unwritten, because now the world wanted more than closure. It wanted justice. After the discovery of Ebby Steppach's remains in May 2018, her case shifted from a missing persons report to an open homicide investigation. But while answers were desperately sought, no arrests were ever made. Theories filled the silence left by investigators. The most direct theory points to the sexual assault Ebby reported just before vanishing. She had told her family she was drugged and raped by multiple boys at a house party. She believed it had been filmed and intended to report it. In text messages retrieved by her family, Ebby had directly confronted at least one of the accused. She named names. She even threatened to go to police. Could her disappearance have been a retaliation, a silencing before she could report them? Police eventually interviewed the young men involved, but not until months later. By then, phones were reset, messages erased, and memories blurred. No evidence of the assault was officially confirmed, and if there had been a video, it was long gone. Still, to her family, the timing was too precise to be a coincidence. Ebby's last phone pinged near Shalamont Park, where she had no known reason to be there. Investigators believe she may have gone there to meet someone, perhaps to confront one of the boys or someone connected to them. The area is secluded but accessible by car. It was not far from where she had been staying with her brother. Had she arranged a meeting to demand answers or collect evidence? If someone drove her there or followed her, they could have forced her into the storm drain or worse. Some believe she was killed nearby and hidden quickly. Early in the investigation, police leaned heavily into the theory that Ebby had mental health issues and may have harmed herself or gotten lost. But this narrative ignores the urgency and clarity with which she spoke before disappearing. She had a purpose. She was afraid but determined. She wasn't spiraling. She was pursuing justice. Even if she had been emotionally overwhelmed, ending up in a drainage tunnel doesn't make sense. The drain was difficult to access, tight, and not somewhere someone would go by accident. The theory of accidental death doesn't match her personality or the evidence. One undeniable aspect of the case is the failure of early investigation, from not searching the park properly to mishandling the car to waiting months to question suspects. Critical time and evidence were lost. Even Shalamont Park, where her body was eventually found, had been repeatedly brought up by her family. They pleaded with officers to search the drains. They were ignored. A private investigator even pointed out the tunnel entrances years before she was found. The case stands as a devastating example of what happens when missing teens, especially troubled or emotional ones, aren't taken seriously. As of 2025, Ebby Steppach's case remains officially unsolved. The Little Rock Police Department insists the case is still open and they continue to follow leads. In recent years, cold case investigators and forensic consultants have re-examined files, but no suspect has been arrested and no new evidence has been made public. The hashtag Justice for Ebby movement remains active online, with thousands supporting the family's fight to keep her story alive. Her mother, Lori, continues to speak out. "I will never stop. Someone knows what happened. Someone out there can still come forward, and when they do, we'll be ready." Ebby's death has led to growing pressure for better handling of teen disappearances and quicker response in sexual assault cases, especially when minors are involved. She left behind more than a mystery. She left behind a lesson. When young women speak up, we have to listen and act before it's too late.